Last week, scientists in China published something that doesn't make sense, not if you believe the old story about our ancestors. They found stone tools. But these weren't just rocks someone smashed together hoping for a sharp edge. These were carefully selected, specific materials, chosen for specific purposes. Quartzite for blades that hold an edge. Dentstone for hammering. Someone understood the properties of these materials. They understood physics 146,000 years ago. And here's the part that's been keeping me up. They made these tools during an ice age. The world was frozen. Every day was a fight for calories and warmth. And ancient humans weren't just surviving. They were engineering. They were teaching. They were creating things that would outlast them. The site is in central China. The tools date back 146,000 years, deep in the Pleistocene. Think of it this way. Massive glaciers covered huge portions of the planet. The world was 5 to 10 degrees colder than today. Every day you're cold. Every day you're hungry. Every day survival is the only thing on the menu. Under those conditions, the obvious move is grab whatever rock is nearby and make do. But they didn't. The researchers found that these ancient people traveled to get specific materials. They knew which stone worked for butchery and which worked for woodworking. They understood that quartzite fractures differently than flint, that one holds a razor edge, the other absorbs impact. That's not instinct. That's generations of knowledge. Someone taught someone else. Someone experimented, failed, tried again, and then passed what they learned to their children during an ice age. And here's what changes everything. This wasn't one group of humans doing something unexpected in one corner of the world. The same pattern shows up everywhere we look. At Chauvet Cave in France, ancient humans crawled deep underground into total darkness, carrying torches, and painted lions and rhinos and horses across the walls. They didn't scratch stick figures. They used shading. They understood perspective. They captured motion so vividly that when the cave was discovered, researchers thought the paintings were modern forgeries. In Germany, archaeologists found bone flutes from 40,000 years ago, delicate instruments carved from vulture bones, tuned to a pentatonic scale. Someone spent hours, maybe days, making a thing whose only purpose was to produce music, to make sound that meant something. What would drive a person to do that? You're cold, you're hungry. The mammoth hunt didn't go well this week, and instead of conserving every ounce of energy for survival, you spend it carving a flute. And then there are the beads. Across Europe and Asia, we find pierced shells and animal teeth. Body decoration. The oldest are over 100,000 years old. Before complex language, before agriculture, before anything we'd recognize as civilization, humans were decorating themselves. They were saying, I am here. I belong to these people. This is who I am. None of this helps you survive an ice age. So why did they do it? Here's what I think is actually happening. And this is where the science gets personal. The ice age wasn't just a physical challenge, it was a psychological one. Imagine generations of your family in a world where the cold never really ends, where people you love will probably die young, where the logic of pure survival says, don't waste energy on anything that doesn't keep you alive. You could shut down. You could just exist. But that's not what they did. They told stories on cave walls. They played music around fires. They put beads around their necks, not because it was useful, but because it meant something to be beautiful. They passed down the knowledge of which stones make the best tools, not just so their children would survive, but so they'd know who they were. An essay in Aeon described Ice Age art as a tactile, joyous exploration of the world, not a grim record of hardship. Joy, exploration. In an ice age, the tools in China, the paintings in France, the flutes in Germany, they're all telling us the same thing. When humans are stripped down to almost nothing, what's left isn't just the instinct to survive. What's left is the need to make something that matters. We've been telling the Ice Age story wrong. It's not a story about humans barely scraping by, not about how tough our ancestors were or how close we came to extinction. All of that is true, but it's missing the point. The real story is this. When the world was frozen, when survival was the hardest it's ever been, ancient humans didn't just endure. They engineered tools with care and knowledge. They crawled into the dark to paint animals that would outlast them by 30,000 years. They carved flutes and wore beads and sang songs we'll never hear. They weren't just surviving the ice age. They were living through it. And that instinct to create, to connect, to make meaning out of the hardest circumstances, that's not something civilization gave us. It's something ancient humans gave to civilization. Here's what I keep thinking about. If you lived 40,000 years ago during an ice age and you crawled into a cave with a torch and some pigment, what would you paint on that wall? What would you leave behind? I genuinely want to know. Tell me in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.